Welcome to this Southampton Fans Forum. In these special circumstances, we are on Zoom, of course, and myself, Adam Blackmore, hosting, Martin Semmens, Southampton's Chief Executive, Toby Steele, the Managing Director, and the Manager, Ralph Hasenhüttl, with a selection of Southampton supporters who are going to be able to ask their questions to our illustrious panel at a time when I imagine a lot of people at Southampton are quite happy. How this is going to work is that supporters who are on this Zoom are going to raise their hand and make sure they unmute themselves and let us see them in all their glory. And they will get to fire questions, which I will mediate at our panel. So if you are in as a supporter, one of the 24 joining us on this Zoom, then please raise your hand as soon as you have a question, because the more from you, the less from me, and that has to be good for everybody. Now, the first hand raised is from Jeff Soul, so let's get underway. Jeff, let's have your question.
Good evening. Thank you very much. My question, if I might, is to Ralph. Good evening, Ralph. Thank you, first of all, for what I consider the tremendous work you've done for Saints since you've been with us, particularly in the last 12 months. I really feel that we've now got a team with cohesion and purpose working together, and that's due to the way that you brought them together. And I must say, developed several players that some people were writing off perhaps a year or two ago. My question is, we've done very, very well recently. The last couple of games, I've seen a couple of reports suggesting that perhaps some of our energy is not quite there. It's not working quite as well as it was a few games back. Are we being found out, do you think, by other teams, or is the pressure of working to such a high energy game beginning to catch up with us? Do we need to adapt?
Good question. We had this topic also when I told my players that they don't believe that it is getting easier in the future. It is getting more difficult. That means if you now stop developing our game, we will not get the wins what we have got so far. So this was clear for us that we need to develop our game also now, because as you said, they are looking on us, they are watching us. I can see a few behaviors. I don't want to say that we are the trendsetter for this, but this pressure from the front and closing from the front, I think is something the opponent see what we do and try to do the same. And that means for us that it is getting more difficult, but this is not an issue for me, because I know that when you come in a run, in a positive run, that it is normal that every opponent that comes want to show that they are able to win against you. And so we are prepared for this, or we try to be prepared for this, and we try to get better and better so that we have always the first step before they know what we have to do. We always want to be hard to read what we want to do, and a little bit surprising for them, not because of a new shape, but also because of a few behaviors, few automatism we still try to create new.
Thank you, Jeff. Much appreciated. Thank you, Ralph. Just to add to that, Ralph, you've now got 3 games in 7 days coming up. So your players' wisdom is going to be 6 days, going to be very important. Your Sunday, Wednesday, Saturday, and 2 of them are Arsenal and Manchester City. So it's like 2 Christmases in 2 weeks for you.
Yeah. Tough fixture, definitely. But we have a squad what is really good balance now. We have alternatives on nearly every position. This is very important, I think, especially for the time that is coming up now. And we are not scared of this time.
Okay, let's go next to James Whitworth, shall we? Who's one of our Saints fans on this Zoom, one of 24. And James will get put up with raised hands, and hopefully he'll unmute himself. James, fire your question away and tell us who it's to, please.
Hello. This is again directed to Ralph, and I guess I'll be one of everyone else to say thank you for the work you've done. And in your words, I've had plenty of happy emotions since you've taken charge of the club. I just wanted to ask about the home form of the team, particularly with regard to the lockdown, because between the start of last season and the lockdown-related suspension, we averaged 0.9 points per home game, I think. And since the restart with no fans, it's been 1.6. Now, as a supporter, that troubles me a little bit. So I wondered what you thought were the possible explanations for that.
Don't be in trouble too much about what we have played since the lockdown was. I think, yes, we didn't have a good quote before. And we definitely changed a few behaviors in our game. And you know, when you play for such a long time against relegation and have always pressure to stay alive, then it's difficult to develop, especially a game that takes a little bit of risk, especially the game with the ball. And what we did when we knew that we were safe, and before lockdown we knew, okay, we only need one more win and then we are safe, and then we take the 3 points against Norwich. And I think this was the right moment then to say, look, now we are safe, we can start to develop something what we always wanted to do, but it was not the right moment to do it. But then we spoke about now we don't have the pressure anymore, and also it is empty in the stadium, so we can manage this game better with coaching from outside, with coaching on the pitch. You can better speak, you can definitely stick more to the game plan. Then you're more focused, more concentrated, and less pressure. And I think it was the right decision. But you can be sure that this what we have learned now, that this what we have created now, we want to show also our fans when they're coming back. And I think we took the right decision at that moment. And now we must be on a level that it doesn't make us any different. It's what I hope is that the people outside see that when we play the pass back and when we build up from behind and we take the risk, when you see the development of Yannick Westergaard, I think is a role model for how good he can be if he gets the trust, and how amazing he plays in the moment. He's on the ball, unbelievable, and this development was only possible because we gave him the trust and we tried to develop him, and he's a role model for what we want to do now. And I hope that everybody who's coming back gives us the support, that they really enjoy what we're doing here, because they see that it is successful and this is important for us.
Thank you very much, James. Just to finalise that, Ralph, it's an exciting moment getting 2,000 fans back on Sunday. Is that your main message to the fans? Look at what we've done, get behind us, be patient, and come with us on the journey, rather than worry and criticise if things go a bit wrong.
Definitely. Give us an atmosphere, help us even if we make mistakes, but support us like no other home crowd, because the guys, the players deserved it, because they really try to give you good games, and they want to show our fans now how good they are now, without loading too much pressure on them. I think it's important that we stay in this very, I don't want to say relaxed mode, but really cool way of playing football that we do now. It's sometimes also surprising for me how brave they are in some moments. It's close to too much for me sometimes, but we have learned this, and I have also so much trust now in what we are doing. And the success is the message for us.
Absolutely, they're certainly on a great journey. Let's go to Tim Tostavin. Tim, I hope I've said that right. Good evening to you. Let's have your question, Tim, and who it's to, please.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can, Tim. Yes,
Okay.
fire away.
I'm not sure who the question's best directed to, but it's to do with the talk about the club being sold and possible new owners from America.
So is that
given
your
the history
question?
of the club,
Is it being sold?
not surprising. That's a little bit concerning for some of us in terms of what's going on at the moment. I just wonder if anybody could tell us a bit more about what's likely to happen.
Right, Tim, thank you very much for the question. So let's head that straight to Martin Semmens, the Chief Executive. Say good evening to you. I think Ralph will happily leave that to you, Martin. Takeover talks, Americans, we've had all the tabloids. I think, Martin, it was about the Burnley game, wasn't it, when we had one of the American stories coming out, the chap who was at Bordeaux. So, Martin, what is the situation with the club's ownership and future ownership?
Yeah, sure. Good evening, everyone. I think we talked about it quite a few times now, and I can only really say the same. And hopefully, as it plays out, it feels a bit more trustworthy. So, we're in a position where We have an ownership group with Mr. Gow and Katerina, and they're incredibly supportive of what we're doing. We have built a plan here with Ralph, with Toby and many others to try and turn this club around and get ourselves to a really strong position. They are 100% behind that. And what I always say is they're behind it and they're with us on that journey, but they're not influencing it at a great level. So they're not in the way, they never make any decision we make difficult. They're supportive, they ask the right questions. I can certainly say I can't really think of anything where we've done anything that we're not comfortable with as a group, and I'm sure Ralph would be able to say the same thing. So from an ownership perspective, we're comfortable with who's there, we're comfortable with the support they give us, and that's fine for now. And I think you can see what's playing out here is evidence of that, right? So we are able to do what we want to do. Ralph has publicly said he's comfortable and is able to operate within the limits that we have. And so from that point of view, I think we feel pretty comfortable. But what I have said publicly before, and we say privately, is at some point, would we like to move to a slightly different investment structure? I think we probably would at some point. We operate in a sustainable way where we spend what we've got, and we work really hard to generate as much money as we can, and then we spend it as long as Toby lets us do that. Would we like to change that a little bit and improve our model over time? We probably would. And I think if Mr. Gow and Katerina are here, they would say the same thing, which is if the right opportunity came along for us to take investment, we would probably do it. Again, I've said this before, it doesn't mean that necessarily we would change our owner completely and they would all just disappear and you have a new one. There might be a change in structure where we are able to take on a different level of investment. So yes, we would like to do that at some point. But as I've said clearly, I would say 99% of what you see in the media is not real. Certainly most of the names that come up I've never heard of. Same with player trading. You just have to understand and respect that those things aren't true. And all we can say is when something does change, if something does change, we'll tell you about it. But I will reiterate again, the most important thing is we have a totally clear structure that gives us totally clear minds to run our club at the moment. And as Ralph says about fans coming back in the stadium, we're all in this together. We all want to achieve the same thing. And Ralph, me, Toby, we're all in the same place. As long as we can come to work and do our jobs and improve the club, we're okay. And when that moment comes, whether it be a year or 2 years away, whenever it is, we'll deal with it. But at the moment, I wouldn't expect anything to happen this season. That's the only real outlook I can give you. When it does, we'll let you know. If there's anything more you want to know about that, Adam, then please ask. But that's all I can really say, I think.
Tim, while you're on there, before I let you go, Tim, the supporter who asked a question. Tim, how do you feel about the club then? You've asked the question for a reason. I don't suppose you want a cowboy fly-by-night owner who comes in, promises the world and doesn't deliver. What do you think you and other fans want? What's wrong with what's going on now?
I think where we are at the moment, we're in a pretty good place at the moment. I think we'd just like to know that that's stable and going forward is going to continue. And yeah, hopefully get even better. But what we don't want is continued uncertainty and rumours about being sold and not having enough money and that sort of stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, I think, Adam, if I can answer that, because I think Tim's comment is absolutely right, which is there was a big call for a change before and we weren't doing well. And now we are doing well. There's a big call not to change. And that gives you a perception of where we're at, right? And what's right is the stability around the organisation. And that's what Mr. Gow and Katerina have brought us, is total stability. We know what we're doing. We know what the plan is. There's no ambiguity in our budget. We know exactly what we're doing. So there is no, flux in that situation. There's no risk in that situation. But at some point that might change and we've got to make sure it's the right change. But again, I wouldn't worry too much about what you see in the media or on social media about have we got enough money or are we going to do this or are we going to move the club to America. I don't mean to be overly direct about it, but none of it's ever true, right? So the truth is that we're okay, we're doing what we're doing, and at some point that might change and we'll hopefully make that change for a better, but the stuff in the media isn't true at the moment.
Thank you very much, Tim. Thank you very much, Martin, for those answers. My history of working with this club, the ones that usually come out loudest are the ones that are least serious and have the least money. That's how often works with takeovers. You are listening to and watching a Zoom Fans Forum special with Southampton Football Club with the manager, Ralph Hasenhüttl, managing director, Toby Steele, and chief executive, Martin Semmens, with 24 supporters selected at random who have joined us to ask questions of the people that run their club. I can only see 2 or 3 raised hands at the moment, you lot, so take your unique opportunity and get yourself in the queue to ask your questions. Let's go next to Grant Pendry. Good evening to you, Grant. Please unmute yourself and fire away at who you want in a respectful way. It's your time
Hello.
to shine.
Can you hear me now?
We can, Grant,
Yeah, no,
yes.
Cool. Firstly, thanks for doing this. I think it's a great thing for the fans to be able to get to ask these type of questions to everyone. I'd just like to go back to Ralph if I could and ask what his thoughts are on a lot of pundits, commentators at the moment are sort of praising how the team's playing and the energy that they're playing with, and a lot of them doubting whether that could be maintained through the length of the season. I'd just like to ask Ralph if what he thinks about that, and are there parts in the game when the players are taking a rest, although it doesn't look like it to us, but are there parts in the game when they are re-energizing?
Yeah. I mean, thanks for the question, Grant. It's the way we play is definitely a very energetic one. This is right. You can see that against the big teams, in the end, you automatically come under pressure. I mean, when I take the Man United game in the last 20 minutes, we really tried also in this time of the game to play with the ball, to let them run, to be brave, to find solutions so that we keep them away from our goal. I have seen the Champions League game from Leipzig against Man United. They had really pushed them in the end. And I think we, in our game in the last 20 minutes, we didn't give a lot of chances away, but they have still so much quality to score from 1 or 2 chances or set pieces or whatever. This was a pity in this game, I must say. But the way we play in the moment, I think, is nasty for every opponent, if big club or small club. We have very long been reduced on our fantastic game against the ball. That was absolutely perfect, what means organization and commitment. The problem was a lot of teams decided not to play against us anymore and only kick long and give us the ball and then wait until we have solutions with the ball, and we didn't have one. So now it's not so easy anymore, because also with the ball we're getting better and better, and that makes us so successful in the moment. I think that our game with the ball was also developing. Still energetic, we always want to be active. We want to say what is happening on the pitch. We want to be active if we have the ball or if we don't. And this is a way of football, I think, that is fantastic to watch in the moment. And I can see that some other clubs also try now to go, because they see that this is successful, and it's always the same. When you're successful with the way you play, and then you find others, they want to do the same. And for us, it's I think a very good compliment.
Yeah, thank you very much, Grant. Ralph, just to add to that, you know, his question was also relating to what you think about what the pundits say about your play not being sustainable, what the former players or whatever and the media say about it. And of course, yes, Manchester United came back, but on Monday night, you finished stronger than Brighton, dominated the second half. At Old Trafford, only 3 months ago, you pushed Manchester United back for the final 25 minutes and got your equaliser. So people seem to just take one match on its own and make a judgment, don't they?
Now I understand. Maybe I just misunderstood a little bit the question. I am sure that we have not an energetic problem in the end of the game because we are pressing so high. Because in total, we run less because the distance is not so long. It's a short sprint, and then you keep the ball. And the guys, they're running then without the ball. They do much more work that you have to do. And it looks so energetic because you are always on the sprint, but it's only a short moment where you sprint. And then you can also calm the game down with the ball. But this is the big difference to the year ago or 1.5 years ago, that we then didn't have the quality to manage our game, that we had to hunt again. And it was like a ping pong, and that kills you then in the end, because this is not possible then for everybody to sprint with the ball and without the ball also, then it's not possible.
Absolutely.
But
Thank you.
I'm not scared. I'm definitely not scared. We can absolutely manage this.
There you go, Grant. Your controlling game's certainly much, much better than you might have been a year ago, that's for sure. Let's go to Angela, shall we? And bring Angela into the panel, this Southampton Football Club Fans Forum. Angela, good evening to you. If you can unmute yourself, please.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
We can,
Yes.
Angie.
Okay, sorry, it's that mute button again.
Yeah.
Right. Hi, evening, everybody. I'm not sure who this would be aimed at, but basically now we're doing so well at the moment and we're near to the top of the table. I would imagine we'd be likely to attract some quality players. I guess when we were sort of near to relegation, there'd be some players that might have been reluctant to join Saints with the threat of relegation. But now we're doing so well, we should attract some, big names. Is that in the plans for the future? And with the lack of attendance money coming in, has that kind of made an impact, or will sort of finances still allow that?
Well, thank you, Angela. I think both questions are related to each other, obviously, because the finances gives you the ability to spend and buy the players you might wish to have. So let's bring Managing Director Toby Steele into the conversation. Toby, good evening to you. I think basically the club's, the effect on the club financially of COVID is one part of that. And of course, the ambition to buy what Angela would say was better players in the future. Has the model of the club changed massively either way after 2020, given COVID and the good club position?
Yeah, let me answer the financial one first, Angela. And yeah, we've lost, and we've said it before, about £20 million so far as a result of COVID. That's a combination of money that was due back to the broadcasters for last season. Again, that was quite well publicised, and then playing games behind closed doors. That has continued into this season. We're probably, depending on how many home games we have per month, between £2.5 to £3 million sort of loss per month. Now, having fans coming back in from this Sunday is obviously helpful, but 2,000 doesn't really add anything to the bottom line financially. It's fantastic from an atmosphere perspective, and as Ralph said, we want everybody to get behind the team as Brighton fans did to their team last Monday. But so financially, the 2,000 is a small amount, but it won't help that overall number that we've seen hit to the bottom line. So I think yes, it's had an impact, but we took out a greater loan in June than we would normally do. So we wanted to protect ourselves against the financial effects of COVID. So from a cash point of view, we're in a healthy position right now. I think in terms of attracting players, from my perspective, and I guess Ralph and Martin would give their own views as well, I don't think we've ever had an issue attracting the right sort of players to the club. The Premier League is an extremely attractive league. We have been in those lower positions for a couple of seasons prior to 1920. That still didn't stop us attracting the players, and certainly with Ralph coming in, the style of play that we've had, we've not struggled at all to attract players. I don't, from my perspective, I don't think sitting here saying we're going to go out and sign big names. It's about signing the right players for Ralph's system, players that are hungry, that want to develop, they want to fit into our team and push on, rather than probably bringing in established big names. But I'll maybe pass that one over to Ralph in terms of what his philosophy on who he sees that we would need to take the team forward.
Yeah, Ralph. Thank you, Toby. Ralph, you've always accepted the way you need to work at this football club to make it thrive and do well. So just reiterate that as a headline, if you want, for the sort of player you want to develop, to bring on, to become an asset for the club, even if they then go on to a giant in European football, for instance.
Yes, definitely. I think, thank you for the chance to speak about this topic, because it's a topic you can be sure that we are also discussing very, very often. I think since I'm here, more players had left the club than were coming new. But what we have done so far was we changed the mentality of the squad completely. And this was more possible with players. They have been hungry. They have been maybe, not the most famous ones, but wanted to show up. Are not the big names, but they become big names now. And I was speaking about, I remember the first stand from my head where I said, wait 1 or 2 years, then you will see that we have players in our team. They play for the English international and are really stars. Yeah? And we have now with Prowse and Ingsi, I think, 2 very famous. And I see a few others in the club. When I see what Ori plays in the moment, what Yannick plays, when Jan Bednarek, this development with the ball is amazing. Kyle Walker-Peters, I mean, he's for me on the ball one of the best. He really remembers me to Philipp Lahm in Germany. He was the same, not tallest guy, but plays amazing games. And I think the way we are going now is on the one side without alternative, because we cannot go in a different way. But you see that also a transfer of our captain in the summer, what we had to do, didn't make us worse. I think we didn't play worse without him. So It's for me a signal. We have hungry, young, good players that want to show up, and all the transfers we will make in the future, and I'm completely with Toby and with Martin, are players. They maybe won't help us immediately, but after a time working with us, like Shay Adams, like Musa, like Kyle took half a year until he was at the point that he can help us. And this is the way we're going to go. And we create players, we create stars. And this is our way. And I think it's a very healthy way for the club, because you never come in a situation that you say, I think it's also not good for our mentality if you bring a player in who is just settled as a superstar, because I think we had in the summer also a few opportunities to get players here. They are very, very famous. And in the end, it ended up with Theo Walcott, because I had the feeling with Theo that it really means something for him to play for this club. He 100% wanted to come to us. He took less money than he gets somewhere else to play here for us. And when I see such a package, then I say, okay, this can be helpful for us. And I think he was definitely a transfer that definitely helped us.
Excellent. Thank you, Ralph. And thank you, Angela, for the question.
Thank you.
Yes, Martin.
Can I say something quickly on that? Because I think it's important. Again, Angela's a great question. And she started the question by talking about, are we going to get more quality players? And I think we do have some quality players, but I think it's important for everybody to know how we attract players. So obviously what we're doing on the pitch, and Ralph is absolutely the key to make that happen, and our finances in the Premier League. But there's an element that is around, the whole picture of what we do as a club. So to give you context, I had a meeting before this with an agent of one of our players who were trying to look at possibly a long-term contract. And he actually said to me, at the time when we came to the club, we thought maybe we would get, a top 6 club. But if we didn't, we knew Southampton's where we wanted to come, because you're, the best run club and you're the most organised of those other clubs. And that's a key ambition for us for that reason, right? So we don't do everything we do in the background to make it look nice and, do nice things online. We do it to make sure that we create the best environment so the best players, the best young players want to come here, and making sure we have the best medical science, the best food, we negotiate with the families and the agents the best way. Everything has to be better than other people. So when Ralph sits with that player and says, this is the club you want to come to, they can see that, and we build that reputation. So it's not for me about, we're doing well, so we're now going to buy more expensive players. It's about getting the best possible player within our format. And to do that, we have to make sure that every element of what we do as a club is close to perfect, because then those good players will come. And I think that's just important for everyone to know the work we do throughout the club is for that reason primarily.
Thank you, Martin. There's another element to that, if I can just. One, this club has a great tradition of developing young talent. Yeah. It has a great history of it. And I think fans are excited when they see young, hungry players doing as many kilometres on the pitch as they can, for a match, and giving everything for the shirt. I think they love that. And two, of course, players who want to think they're good enough to play for Liverpool or Manchester City, whatever, know that at some stage of their growth, Southampton, historically, in recent history, can prove to be possibly the best place to grow your career through certain ages through ages or through your development, coming from another country maybe, to get yourself where you want to be because the club does things right. Is that fair?
Yeah, and
I think they might come to you is because they know they might go on again.
Yeah, and like Ralph talks about consistency of performance on the pitch. If you do things, in a regular way and it works out, then you have belief to do it again. And we have to do the same thing off the pitch, which is if we look after these players well and we develop them well on and off the pitch, then they tell other players that and other agents that. So for me, it's about consistency of delivery. There's no point having one good meeting with one good player and one good agent. You've got to do it every day. So we build that reputation. So when the guys get in front of Ralph, they already know the club is fantastic, and then Ralph can convince them over the line. But it is more complex than just money. It is about convincing them, the good ones, convincing them of the story. The not so good ones will come for the money, but the good ones will come because Ralph can convince them it's a great story to be here.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Martin. Thank you, Angela, for your question.
Thank you.
Right,
yeah,
I don't have a Christian name for our next supporter, but as his surname is Walker and his initial is J, we're obviously going to choose Johnny Walker as his name. So let's see what it is. Let's get Mr. Walker or Mrs. Walker, who knows, onto the screens and get your question to one of our three club panelists.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can, Mr. Walker. Give us a Christian name, sir, so we're all on friendly terms.
The No, I much prefer to be known as Mr. Walker, certainly. No, it's Jules, and I'm here with my partner, Rachel Foxley, who's also a season ticket holder here, so very pleased to be here.
Great stuff. Good evening, Jules. Who's your question to?
Which I kind of put my hand up a while ago, maybe it's been taken up a little bit, but I'll try and make it a little bit different. It's for Ralph, it's a football question. I was thinking when he was talking about other teams, seeing how we play, maybe in similar styles, whether we can still carry on playing in that way, because the little tactics, the automisms and the triggers are still relevant however the opposition play, even though the game as a whole may look different because they're adopting the same. But to move it on from that as well, maybe does that mean at some point you change away from the whole strategy of pressing in that way and change to a different way of playing?
Ooh, Ralph. Big question.
Well, I hope I understood it right, but it was a little about if I would change my tactic if I see it doesn't work anymore, or what?
Yeah, if you see that other people are catching up with it and doing what you're doing and spotting your automatisms, your triggers.
I think it's where the little things might continue to carry on, because even though the big tactic, the little things are still the triggers are the triggers, and then you still do them when you do them, whatever happens.
And would you
ultimately get
up?
to a position where you have to say it's not going to work anymore?
Yeah.
The goal was, I very often speak about the 4 phases in our game: with the ball, against the ball, and the 2 transitions: when you lose it, when you win it. And then the 5th part is maybe the set pieces. We are also very successful with the set pieces. So you can be sure that every part of this game is every day a big topic in our work on the pitch, in our meetings, in our work on the pitch, in everything we do all the day. Yeah. And I think the good thing is, if you work like this, then you have definitely more automatism, more details, and the detail, I always say, the detail makes the design. You can see it from outside, but you don't know the details. What everything is included in working against the ball in our net. When we have the ball, what are the details, how we want to play? And it's not so easy, even if they're watching us, even if they look at us, to find immediately the right solution against it, because I make more and more the experience that they don't want to build up against us anymore because they're so scared about our pressing, every team. Yeah? And I think this is an image we have got, we have worked on, and now we add the other quality to our game. And this makes us a much better team in the moment. And what I really enjoy is that the whole team that is here now, they went with me through a very difficult term. Yeah? And nearly every player had an unbelievable bad time, whether it was sitting on the bench or on the stands, not part of the squad, not playing at all. I think every player in this team was part of a not being selected team. Eh? And now everybody enjoys so much what we do here because we are successful now. And you can feel that the atmosphere in the moment is like they're so hungry of being successful. They're so hungry of learning new things. And we all developed our game. They, and also me as a manager, I developed my game with the ball extremely. I learned new things. I tried new things I never tried before as a manager. And we can learn what works, what doesn't work. And it ends up in a super convinced squad. They go in a game, and even if it's tight, you can feel that we have always the belief, we can still win, we can still win. It doesn't matter who it is. We have still the quality to say, we are better. And there's nothing better for any squad when you wake up in the morning of a match day and you think what we do is perfect and we can win against every team when we do it like this. And this is the feeling I have in the moment. And that makes every player much better, every player stronger. That doesn't mean that every time it's everything perfect, but the amount of work we put in our game to make it better, and not only me. When you see after every session the players standing together and discussing about football, when they're sitting in the dining room, they don't speak about, I don't know, cars or something else. They speak about football. They discuss the tactic. They move the salt and the pepper around and discuss the back four and how we should move. And I think this behavior, this habit changed completely in this club and in this squad. And we want also for the future, when we sign players, they have this. They are the same driven than we are now. And that is the fundament, the atmosphere, the basic of being successful. And I hope it can go on as long as possible.
There we go. Thank you. Great answer, Ralph. Does that answer your question, Mr. Walker?
I think it's a great answer, yeah, and it's great to hear from Ralph. You know, I think he's inspirational and clearly a great leader. It's great to be part of Southampton Football Club. Having had a bit of a gap in that feeling, maybe, you know, we're back, and the Southampton way is something that's really great to be part of. Thank you.
Well, thank you for joining in with us tonight and your question as well, because you certainly got the manager going in a positive way, and we've all got
say the questions. The questions are all very good at the moment, I must say.
Well,
better than from the journalists, you know.
Who was it? Right. Okay, thank you, Mr. Walker. We will move on because there are people waiting to ask questions, and now Ralph has put pressure on every question that's going to be asked now to see if it comes up to his standards. Let's go to Rich Harper, who is our next contestant on this fans forum, and let's see if Rich could be the quickest to turn his mute button off and make sure we can hear him. Rich, good evening. Are you there?
I am here. Good evening. Can you hear me all right?
Brilliant. Perfect.
Thank you. My question is for Ralph, and like everyone else, I'd like to say thank you. After the last couple of seasons with previous managers, the football was a little hesitant, shall we say, and it's very much more exciting to watch now. But one thing me and my fellow season ticket holders have noticed, though, is we're very hesitant when taking a throw-in. We seem to sort of stand around the touchline and nothing much happens, whereas other teams are very much quicker at moving the ball from a throw-in than us.
Yeah. It's definitely a good question, and also a topic. We have a few statistics how many balls we get to our own player and how many balls we lose. The statistic in general in the Premier League is about 50-50. So 50% of the balls you throw in end up to the opponent, and 50% end up to you. It's interesting that we still tried different things and we haven't found yet the perfect way to do it. But you see how complex this game is and how detailed it is. And you can be sure when you see the rest of our set pieces, how much we score now in the moment from set pieces. We scored twice against Man U, and now again against Brighton with a fantastic header from Yannick. We have with Prowse a very good deliver. But with the throw-ins, I'm still also not perfectly happy, I can tell. So let's keep on going and let's keep on working on this topic, because there are always other opportunities you can find, and we are still not happy with this.
Thank you, Ralph. Rich, are you happy with that answer?
Very much so, yeah. Thanks very much.
Good. And are you one of the lucky fans coming on Sunday for the out of the 2,000, Rich, or not?
No, I unfortunately for me, I have a defective autoimmune system, so I was shielding all the time, and I won't come back now until it's perfectly safe for me to do so. So I'll probably be a late arrival, even maybe next season. I don't know. It all depends on how the vaccinations go. I'm looking forward to coming back, but it won't be just yet.
Well, look, in that case, good luck to you with your continued shielding. Well done for getting so far through this terrible time we're all having. And I'm sure everyone will welcome you back with open arms when you can finally safely come back to the stadium. Thank you, Rich. Take care. I hope me and Dave can keep you entertained sometimes while you can't get to the games. Now, let's go to Matt Wesson, and we'll do Zoe Wilson afterwards. So you two make sure you've got your mute buttons ready. But Matt, you're next on, speaking to Ralph, Martin, or to Toby.
Hiya.
Hi, Matt.
Took me a second for the mute button there.
Proper video.
My question's for Ralph, and it's about like the emotional state of a player after, like for example, Prowse does a handball at the weekend. So say like for the next 10 minutes, do they feel guilty and like work a little bit harder, or do they get down in the dumps and maybe they need a bit of egging on?
Okay, so I sort of get you. What you're saying is, do they control their emotions through the 90 minutes, or do they go up and down as things happen during the game? I mean, like that. So in other words, will Prowse perhaps try harder, you think, Matt, or is your question more about whether he loses concentration because he's thinking about it?
Well, that would be the answer, wouldn't it?
Right. Okay. Let's see what Ralph thinks. Ralph, how do you feel? How do you think that works when players go through something on the pitch that you know, like when Prowsey did his Harlem Globetrotters on Monday night and accidentally, and then how do we, I can say it because you won, how does that affect your players, do you think, or do you coach them to not let things affect them, or is it good that some things affect them? Can it be a positive thing?
Everything you do every day affects you. That is, nobody can switch it off. And if you have a handball like this, it's for sure that it affects you. It also affects you if you have suddenly 2,000 fans in the stands. It's also something new. And I said it's a completely new game if you have suddenly the supporters in. And this was more affecting some players, I think, that the handball we have seen from Prowsey. The interesting thing for me was that before the penalty we have got then, and we have normally also Prowsey as a guy who takes it, he said because of this handball, he didn't want to take it. Because this maybe, and you see that they still think sometimes it's like when you get fouled, you shouldn't take it, the penalty. And I think, yes, these things sometimes affecting the players. And during the game, you don't have time to listen, but when it's a moment where you can think about it, and it's definitely when you wait for the penalty and then you don't want to take it because you think you have made the handball before we had the penalty for Brighton. So this is definitely something that affects them sometimes, but they are on the other side. I feel that we have in a moment a few guys in this group. They are really nice, really respectful when you speak with them on the pitch, but when the game goes on, they are machines and they hunt you until, I don't know. Also, I don't want to play against this team at the moment because it's not nice. You get always pressure, you have never time. So this is a mentality strength I haven't seen so far in this club, and I'm very happy that we could change this mentality.
Matt, does that answer your question? Are you happy with that?
Yeah, it's also very interesting to know about that he didn't want to take the penalty also.
I think so,
because it almost, if he did miss it, it'd almost be like a double whammy, wouldn't it?
Yeah. And I mean, we have a few good penalty strikers, so it was. I think we have an order all the time, but this order is always influenced by the things that happened on the pitch, and this is important, I think.
Yeah, of course. I think Danny didn't take too long to want the ball off him anyway, Ralph.
Yeah, we want him with the highest goal count possible, don't we?
Danny Ings won't need to be asked twice to take a penalty, I'm sure of that. Thank you, Matt, for your question. Much appreciated. Enjoy the rest of your evening. This is a Southampton Fans Forum with Managing Director Toby Steele, Manager Ralph Hasenhüttl, and Chief Executive Martin Semmens. Let's go to Zoe Wilson then next. We've given her plenty of time to prep a question. Zoe, good evening. Welcome to the Zoom forum. Let's have your question to whoever you would like to ask it to.
Thank you. First, I'm impressed I've managed to unmute because I was worried that I was going to be the next person not to unmute.
We're impressed too.
Adam, you touched on it a little while ago about the club's tradition of bringing young players through to the first team, and I just wanted to ask Ralph his kind of current opinion of the youth system coming through. There's been a bit written about every team at every level wanting to play the same style of football, which seems to make sense. But arguably some of the results of the B team and the under-18s have been quite erratic compared to the first team. And why you think this is it because some of the youngsters have moved up to the first team, because the production line's not strong enough? Is it harder for young players to play that game? And is there still, I suppose, the same focus on the youth system and bringing those players through that there has been in the past? Really good question, Zoe. Ralph, all yours on that, everything youth.
Thank you, Zoe. Good to speak about this topic because you maybe have written that we are very, very focused now on what happens in the youth, and the changes we have made in the last couple of months are massive. You have heard maybe about the playbook we created for the club. I created with all the knowledge I have, put it in, and we are in the moment on the way to develop also the coaches in the club. And this is something that takes longer. And when you want to have immediately the best result, that would not happen. It takes very long for every player to learn this completely different way of defending. It's very ball oriented. I've tried to explain it very often that we are not following the man. We are looking for the player, for the ball, and where the ball is, we want to be, and we want to give pressure. And that means for the players, we want to give them as early as possible this input, because when they are then coming up, they can have an easier way in the first team. I don't agree 100% that we have seen awful results. We have seen a game against Man City. They have won 5-2. And then you could see, I was very happy about this game because you could feel that the players starting to believe you. It takes time that you convince the players. It takes time that you see they are following this way. Also for the coaches, it's not so easy to teach something. They have not the whole knowledge in the beginning. You know, there's nothing worse than half knowledge, because when you get questions and you don't have the right answer, it's difficult for a coach also. So what we are doing now, especially Flem and Kelv, they really work on them and they work with them to find answers for every question. And you can see that the habits, the behaviors are coming more and more and more. And this philosophy, this identity, when you can see this for all the teams, I think this helps the young players definitely to come earlier up in the first team, because this is their goal and this is our goal, and this is why we have the academy. And it wouldn't make sense if we and also it's the same as we don't want to loan these players now to other clubs because nobody plays like we play. It doesn't make sense for us. When we want to bring them in the first team, it doesn't make sense to loan them in the third league or in second league or League One, because they don't play like we play. Yeah, we play completely different. And when they want to make the step here, not everybody will make it, but a few, maybe 1, 2, maybe 3 players can in the future be part of the squad. And there are some fantastic young players out there, and we do everything to prepare them as good as possible for the first team. Yeah? And therefore, we did with Matt Crocker, with Martin, with the analyst, with my coaches. And as you know, we have now also one coach always part of our first team. That is the best you can get. This is a development. As you as a coach, I would have liked this when I was young, because I must learn everything for myself. But now he has a role model how he can do it. I think this is perfect for this club.
Does that answer your question, Zoe?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's always good to know that we've seen how it's taken time with the first team to kind of the whole philosophy to embed with them. So it makes sense that it will take longer for the other teams. And I think as a fan, it's always good to know that if those players are coming through, then the more competition for places in the first team, I think the better.
Yeah, pushing up from the reserve team is everything. Thank you, Zoe. Good question. Ralph, if I can just tack on a little bit to that, just out of interest, how much harder is it to actually teach younger kids and to spot the ones that will be able to do it, because they can't take in as much as adult players? So when you're going through the academy ages, Ralph, how hard is it to judge a player's ability or mentality when they're maybe 15, 16, 17 compared to when they're 23, 24?
It's much easier. It's much easier because the hard disk is empty, I say it always, or empty. You don't have to remove old stuff or wrong stuff, so they can immediately learn the right stuff, right for our game. It's much harder to change a player that was 10 years playing on the highest level as a professional and then suddenly make things completely different. This is much harder. And you see that these players have, after breaks, after the summer break, they are falling immediately back in old behavior. So you need to fresh up it all the time. The young lads, when they have once learned it, it's automatic. And this is the reason why we start earlier with putting this new stuff on the hard disk, if you want.
Thank you. Martin, just to bring you in on the academy side of things as a business, how important is it? Is it still as important to invest as much proportionately as you have in the past? Are you still doing that, or even more? And also, how important is it that you develop players that you might sell rather than keep? So some academies seem to run as businesses on their own in different Premier League clubs.
Yeah, we don't see it as a business, right? But we do think it's more important than ever and more relevant than ever. And I would probably start right from the beginning and think about what you're trying to do if you're running a football club like Southampton, is you're trying to do things differently. So we don't always try and say we do things better, but we want to do things differently. We want to stand out for something. When we design the plan for the club, you look at other clubs in the league and some that have gone out of the Premier League, and how are we different from them, right? We're different now in the way we play, different in every detail of how we operate, but we're also different because we want to develop our own players, and we have a good way of doing that. So I think we say, if we're being a little silly, that if we don't have an academy and we don't develop our players, why are we different from anybody else? So that's important. And then if you think about our financial model, our squad model, the way that Ralph likes to develop players, every single time we bring a young player into the first team, that player is on a sensible wage, that player has great energy, has an empty hard drive, but it also allows us to invest time and money elsewhere. So, you know, if we were being honest, Ralph and I would sit down in the summer and go, if we could take another Will Smallbone, then that would give us more money to spend on a new striker or a new this or a new whatever it might be. So it's not, we don't see it as a business. We don't calculate, you know, we sell this amount of players from the academy, but we see it as a wider structure. And I think Toby and I have probably had a few conversations along the lines of, if we finish high up the league and we develop our own players, we have a really easy job. If we don't do those two things, then it gets really difficult.
Before I go to David, Ralph, if I can just wrap this up with you, do you have a target for how many players you think should come through the academy system into the first team? And I ask you that because obviously I work alongside a great youth coach, Dave Merrington, who was Southampton manager in the 90s, but became famous for bringing Shearer, Letitia, Benali, all those through the youth system at Southampton. His target when he came to the club in the 80s and told Ted Bates he'd get 66% of the players from the academy into the first team, that was the target then. I imagine modern football, you're happy to get 10% of the academy through to the first team or 20. Do you set a target in your own head for how many you want to see come through over a period of time?
Not really, because the focus so far was more to have now the short-term success. The long-term project will start now, and it will definitely take a few years that you can see that there are coming more and more players now to us. I think we have a few good ones, but also in other clubs you can see that the way is not always going directly to the first team. I think also Prowse was coming, and it took a long time until he was part of the first team consistently. Yeah? When I was coming here, he was also sometimes on the stand, so you would just want to shop before leaving, if you wanted. But suddenly then the players, I think for us it's important that we take care of them, that we do everything that we make them better, that we keep them fit, that we give them chances to develop. And I think it's up to the players. When the problem is, the better you are as a Premier League team, the more difficult it is to come in the game. Yeah? If you want to be better than Prowse, you must really perform well, yeah? Because he definitely plays fantastic. Or it's the same now. Huh? Ingsy, if you want to play instead of Ingsy, not so easy for a young striker, but it's not necessary. When he's there and shows up, and the time will come, and then it's not in 1 year or 2 years, but maybe in 3 years, he's suddenly a big player. I can remember Lewandowski or whoever, he was in the first year, Dortmund, he was not playing, and it took time until he was in this position. But if you have a better quality in the team, then it's clearer for the players. I have to be that good, otherwise I have no chance. And the Premier League is the best league in the world. And to make the step there from the youth to the Premier League immediately, it's not always easy.
No, of course not.
And Adam, that's why we don't target a number of people to come out of the academy every year. The targets are more based on the number of people within Ralph's squad that have come from the academy, because that builds a culture, builds a dynamic. And then there's some targets that Toby and I have about, wage structure. And if everybody is 28 on a reasonable wage, we're not going to survive that. So it's about having balance. But I think it's more about having, a certain number of people within the 24 or 25 that come from the academy, because that's important. Again, as Ralph says, even if it is Theo Walcott, right, who still loves the club and has a feel for it, it's important to have people around that have been here and understand the area, and not just everybody from outside as well, I think.
Yeah, interesting. Thank you, both of you. Okay, let's go to David C., who's had his hand up for a while. David, good evening to you. Let's see if you can win the unmute competition for the evening. Special prize, a question to the panel. David, are you there? Said David C. on the screen. Come on, David. We're nearly there. We've nearly done our hour. Don't let us down. Good evening, David. How are you?
Fine, thank you. My question is to Ralph, and it's really seeking his views about the timing of substitutions. I can see that on a number of occasions this season, we've made our substitutions relatively late in the game. For example, in the Man United game, we brought on 2 subs at 90 minutes. When United had equalised after 74 minutes. Wolves, we brought on a sub at 79 minutes and 90 minutes. Again, Wolves equalised after 75 minutes. And in the games against Villa and Newcastle, we brought on subs relatively late in the game. I was wondering what Ralph's views were about the timing of bringing on substitutes, and whether he was aware of any statistics which give some guidance as to the effectiveness and difference that substitutions make, depending on when you bring them on during the game?
Thank you, David. That's a smart question. It's an interesting one, Ralph, isn't it? Because if you win games, often nobody notices when you made substitutions unless they score. If you lose games, everyone's looking for reasons, and substitutions often become one of them. So what's your view on subs, Ralph, and the effectiveness of them and the timing of them?
Yeah, what you have said, I think shows the last game where it was sub the first time after 45 minutes. So that doesn't mean that we win, but it was a clear plan to. It sometimes depends on the alternatives you have on the bench. It's definitely different if you have Ingsy and Reddy, for example, on the bench, and this maybe you sub a little bit earlier. You want to get better when you sub, and you're never sure if you get better. And in some moments, a yellow card can be a trigger to say now we must, because it's dangerous. This is why I like to do an earlier sub, but I take it here also as a what I don't want to speak too often about Jürgen Klopp, but I think the way he said it is a clear one. He also has a very intense way of playing football, and you never know in the end of a game who is struggling with the physical options. Yeah, and that means when you make a sub early and he has problems, what do you do then? Yeah, and this is the risk I don't want to take. But because the worst can happen is when some players suddenly are struggling and you cannot sub anymore because you have done the 3 subs, and then you are really struggling, because then the chance of winning the game is a not very high one. Huh? So this is the reason why you wait very long. And the good thing is, and this is I think the most important thing for our way we want to play, the first 11, and this was also the reason why Ingsy didn't start in the last game, because I don't like to go in a game knowing that this player is only for 50 or 60 minutes, because that means for me I have automatically one change. Then one has suddenly a yellow card, I have to take him off, and one has problems, and then I have 3 subs, and it limits me in my alternatives at the end of the game. And this is what is for me the most horrible thing. You can be sure I have some experience with subs in my entire life, and you only sub when it's 100% necessary. Otherwise, you don't. It's not always that you get better. When I would have 5 subs, maybe then I do it a little bit more often. Yeah, but also there's a reason why they are not beginning. They are on the bench, so they are maybe not better than the players who starts. And when is the moment where the player? The one thing is, and then I agree absolutely, the players are not always honest. And when you see them running on the pitch and you don't know how fit they are anymore, they will never tell you, "Oh, coach, I'm finished. I want to be subbed," because they're all very driven and they don't want to go off. So, but in the end, you find it's always hard to say when is the right moment to do it. When you win the game, it was everything right. When you lose it, it was maybe too late or whatever. This is. I agree with you, Adam.
Yeah, it's interesting, Ralph. Thank you. Interesting stuff about not starting a player for 60 minutes. I like that. I've learned something there. Well, we've just about had an hour, ladies and gentlemen, as we promised. And believe it or not, Martin Semmens, we've done nearly an hour without any mention of VAR, any sort of political campaigns going on, fans' behaviour with taking a knee on Sunday. We've had absolutely no controversy, gents. And we've not even had anybody ask about Danny Ings or Ryan Bertrand's contracts. So I'm just debating whether I should stir the pot in the final moment.
Up to you.
And say it must be the chief executive's turn to finish off in style by allowing me to be cheeky and say, I did see a member of the media tweet, and I think on the radio somewhere, not on Radio Solent, obviously, somewhere where the sport isn't as good, somebody say about close to finishing deals and contracts with Danny Ings and Ryan Bertrand. So I've got 2 questions for you. What does that mean, close to signing? Does it mean they're hovering over the paper with a pen or sort of like, I don't know, because someone either signs or they don't. Is there anything to tell supporters about contract negotiations with Danny Ings and Ryan Bertrand? Ralph spoke about this on Friday when he talked about keeping Danny for his contract duration. What is happening behind the scenes that you can share with us that gives fans and enlightens them to the truth?
Sure. So first things first, I think you have to look at Alex Crook, who's on TalkSport. And if you listen to the Total Saints podcast, we said the same thing there, which is he lives locally. He doesn't have any information. You know, the things he says aren't real. The fact that he would like Ralph to go to Manchester United because he's a Man United fan is his opinion. It's not journalism, and so a lot of the stuff he says isn't true. And again, I'll say the same thing, which is 90% of what we see on these channels just isn't real. We just have to keep saying that and be honest to people that they very, very rarely know the truth. Sometimes they do, but rarely they do. So on player contracts, I think I will answer the question on Danny, but just to be clear what we're doing, okay? So this club had gone a few degrees off where it wanted to be in football direction, in leadership, in player contracts. We've got a few that weren't quite right. So what we wanted to do was have a plan in place and make sure that plan was right, make sure that plan was working, give Ralph some time to implement those changes. We had total belief in that plan, which I think was always evident. But let's just make sure that we have the direction sorted of where we're going and be really clear how Ralph's strategy on the pitch and off the pitch was going to come to light. Because, as I've said before, there might be great players in the Premier League that are not great players for Ralph. And there might be players that are really struggling, but actually playing with Ralph might be awesome. And so therefore, it's not about just tying down certain players who have got good football. It's about the right people for us and for the future of this club that we're all committed to. So that's what we were doing. And I guess we're now in December. And, you know, a month or two, we began the process of going, okay, we know where we're going now. Let's lock down the players that are critical to our future. And one by one, we'll work through them and make sure that they sign contracts. So Prowse's done, Oriel's done, Jan's done. Really important figures, I think, for Ralph in the future. So there are others that we would like to do. They're always personal discussions. I think sometimes the media and also fans and also us, to be fair, Toby and I occasionally say it to each other. You have to remember they're individuals with personal lives and families and parents and children. And it's not as simple as going, here's a contract, sign it and move on. You know, they've always got individual issues. So we work them through. We don't rush them. Ralph's viewpoint on it is we are going to progress as a team. We're going to get better as a team with these guys or not. So if someone doesn't want to come on our journey and on our train with us, we'll find somebody else. We're not scared of that. No problem. But let's make sure we've got the right guys who are committed to our future signed up, and we'll keep doing that. So I think you can expect one or two more. You know, we don't think we'll see a lot of action in January, but we might see some action in the summer. I think I've got a clear view, and I'm sure Ralph is of a similar view, that you can't keep the same team every year. We have to see evolution. We have to see improvements. We have to see new faces. We have to see new legs. All that will happen. So we're not scared if someone chooses to go. That's fine. We'll keep going. And then I think the last thing before we get onto Danny then is you have to think about it like a jigsaw. If you think about it on individual players and you think about an individual player's contract or buying an individual player, that's where the mistakes come. You have to look at it as a jigsaw and how's that jigsaw going to fit together. And if we sign one contract and suddenly another contract's not a good idea. And if that doesn't get signed, then that one would be. And so we see it as a jigsaw. That jigsaw changes all the time for us and for the players and for Ralph. So we're evolving it all the time. I think specifically on Danny, you know, we are in that conversation. That conversation is ongoing. What Ralph has said is 100% clear, which is we want him to stay with us. We think he probably should. We think, you know, he's found a natural home where he's doing brilliantly well. In the end, it is up to him. He's an individual and will make his own decision, but we would be hopeful that he will stay. But I wouldn't get too excited about what you see in the media one way or the other, because it isn't normally very real, if I'm honest. But we, you know, the ones that we want to stay, we are working on it. And it'll happen soon or it won't on certain individuals.
Thank you very much, Martin. Thank you very much, Toby Steele, Managing Director. Thank you, Ralph Hasenhüttl, of course, the club manager. And thank you to all the attendees. Really enjoyed that. Thank you. We got through all the questions that everybody wanted to ask. There were different questions from different people. And we will try and do, of course, a real life forum at some stage in the future when we can, back at St Mary's Stadium, so we can really thank fans properly for all their support. But for now, we will try and do this again in the future. I hope you've enjoyed it on YouTube and appreciate the time of everybody getting this together for you. That's it. We will also put this out on BBC Radio Solent after the Arsenal game, when Saints have won at the Emirates for the first time in a couple of years. And we will carry on celebrating the success that they've had in 2020. Thank you, Martin. Thank you, Toby. And thank you, Ralph. And the club, of course, will put this on.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Aaron. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.